Hello, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here to talk to you about a topic that I'm passionate about and that we all are very interested in talking about. Millennials, Generation Y. But first, I'm going to start with a story about my grandmother. Here we are, me, my cousin, and my grandmother, our matriarch. My grandmother is a very hip 87, and over the winter, she read Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg and couldn't wait to talk to me about it. Now, as Dave said, we had a terrible Boston winter, and I called her after one of our big storms to see how she was doing. And she said to me that she had just come inside from shoveling out her car. So I scolded her. I said to her, "Why would you do that? Why don't you ask the gentleman downstairs, finally, to do that for you?" "Why would I do that?" she answered, "when I can do it myself?" So I said to her, "But you need to start thinking about your own health. You need to know your limits. You need to be resourceful." To which she responded without skipping a beat, "Oh, how millennial of you." Always coaching, being so resourceful, and she drew out those words as she said them. So what do you think about that? I got a little defensive. As someone who thinks that she's a member of Generation X, and as someone who has spent the bulk of my career working with millennials at colleges and universities, advising them, teaching them, nurturing them, hopefully, researching them, studying how they interact, how they learn what they want, attending many conference sessions about them, and listening to them. My work has been preparing millennials for the workforce, ensuring that they get the most out of their careers and that their employers get the most out of them. And as I started thinking about that conversation with my grandmother, I realized that so many times we have these similar conversations where it sounds like speaking the same language, but there are so many gaps in our feelings and our perceptions. So let's visualize this for a moment together. Here is what we, as HR professionals, think of millennials. Here's how we describe them. 14% people savvy, 86% tech savvy, 39% fun-loving, 11% hardworking, and 1% loyal to their employer. Yikes, right? What do we do with that person? Now, how many of you have thought that way? I have, right, sometimes? But here is how millennials describe themselves. 65% people savvy, 35% tech savvy, 14% fun-loving, 86% hardworking, and 82% loyal to their employers. 1%? 82%. So although we may define these terms and these phrases differently, what's obvious here is that there is a disconnect. So I'm not here to dispel myths about millennials, and I'm not here to talk about the differences between generations. My good colleagues will be doing that later on in some of our breakout sessions. But I am here to talk about leading these young professionals in today's workplace, about taking these perceptions that we have, that our grandmothers have, reflecting on them, and finding leadership and organizational strategies that work for our mutual success, for millennials and for those of us that are leading them. And I've had to make a shift myself in my own career. Part of it is that I'm getting older. There is that piece there. Now with children of my own who are going to be the new generation coming after millennials. Part of it is that I'm no longer in the ivory tower, now working at Bright Horizons in a corporate setting, the reality of their presence and their influence as a growing number of our employees and as our clients has taken on new meaning for me. And I realize that if I want my function to succeed, if I want my company to succeed, our companies to succeed, we need to align our development with their development if we want to sustain rapid growth and thrive. And part of me realizes that as we do with any generation that comes after us, we are responsible for bringing them here. We have some responsibility in creating millennials. We have parented and coached them to push boundaries, to glass ceiling. Be individuals and integral members of teams. We have provided them with, sometimes unwillingly, a vast array of information, and the information highway that they built while standing on our shoulders. And so I'm reminded right now of a book I read recently called You Raised Us, Now Work With Us, by Lauren McLean, who is a fellow at the Boston College Center for Work and Family. And I think to myself, are we leading them at work as we have led them at home? So luckily for me, while I was catching up on my HBO movies, I said, aha, there's a metaphor that works. How many of you know this superhero? How many of you know Captain America? How many of you have seen the movie? So you know that Captain America is a World War II superhero. He enters the military as Stephen Rogers, a frail, petite, yet determined man. I won't get into all of it now, but he receives this experimental serum that turns him into a mighty man with an indestructible shield. He fights the Nazis. We think he dies in a plane crash, but really he is frozen in an ice tundra, found in the new millennium, and becomes a modern-day superhero. He uses his old charm, some of his old practices, some of his old tools, but he's fighting a new, terrifying bad guy. Of course, he's triumphant because he's persistent, because he's adaptable, and because he puts together a new, modernized team. And together, they find new solutions to new problems. So how is Captain America relevant 60 years later? How is he successful? I found myself irrefutable, indispensable leadership traits that transcend time. Now, there are hundreds of books out there that would tell us yes, but as I study and observe effective leaders and effective managers, and we heard a lot of it from James this morning as well, I found a common thread. Effective leaders know their business, and they know it well. In addition to that, they are authentic and strategic. They know their message and who they're talking to. They motivate, they inspire, and they drive results and lead innovation because they get buy-in. They resonate. They connect. And the vision and the culture they uphold resonates. And that means that what they're saying gives meaning to someone else. And not just one person. Effective leaders resonate with many people. And because they do that, they build trust, they impart wisdom, and they collaborate much more effectively. Effective leaders do not micromanage, they resonate. And as I look at those list of qualities, I think to myself, which of these qualities are inherent in the millennial generation? And which of those qualities are we responsible for building in them? And how do we do that? Let's start by defining resonating. What does that look like? So many times we see this in action. So many times we feel it when we're leading, when we're parenting. And we know that if we do not resonate, if we do not give meaning, if we don't understand that whiffum, that what's in it for me of the other person, if we don't relate to our audience, fewer people listen. But when we do, the outcome looks something like this, if we were all little circles. Here you have a leader who is saying, I get you. I hear you. I know what your goals are. I know what your skills are. Here are my goals. Here are our goals. How can we get there together? And when we do this, we build trust. We come together. And as leaders, we're more likely to get followers and to get buy-in. There is consensus. So extending that metaphor of Captain America, if we go back to the infographic from before, are we resonating with the growing number of millennials in the workplace? If there's a fundamental misunderstanding between us, are we leading them effectively? Are we connecting with them in ways that recruit, retain, and advance them for our mutual success? Yes, the most resilient organizations among us are doing this well. Some of us are still finding our way, and some of us struggle. So how can we ensure that we are resonating, that we're building consensus? Well, let's start with getting to know one another a little bit more. So what do we know about millennials that are not our assumptions? We know that they're the largest generation. They're 7% bigger than the boomers. We know that they're on their way to becoming the most educated generation. 90% of high school students say that they're going to pursue college opportunities after high school. They are a diverse generation. Just to use one statistic, women now make up 50% of our workforce. They are digital natives, and they're globally connected. No statistics necessary there. We know they all have iPhones, and they all use their iPhones to get the news. And one thing that we forget is that they're still young. The most common age in the United States is 22 years old. That means that there are more 22-year-olds in this country than any other age. And to be young is, in its very essence, to be inexperienced. So what does this tell us? They need good leadership. We all did. We all do. But we have to adapt the ways that we lead to resonate with them. So as HR professionals, what piece of this pie do we influence? What piece of their engagement and success do we influence? I'm going to talk about 3 areas here now, but I hope that you'll continue to have this conversation and build on it at your table discussions. But let's start with onboarding. We've seen millennials tell us that they're loyal to their employers. They feel that they're loyal to their employers. We also know that they like to receive information fast. If we engage them from the beginning, if we mentor them, provide constant feedback, and coach in that important first year, if we provide a great first-year experience for them, we know that they will stay longer and they will remain more engaged. And this is good practice for everyone, but it is particularly important for them because we know that millennials thrive in strong cultures, inclusive cultures, in organizations that have socially and economically conscious missions. They like to feel connected to something bigger. And also, we need to manage their expectations and help them to see their futures realistically. Learning and development. We need to change the language of how we grow our talent. Development. Talk about it from onboarding, recruiting even. How is someone going to grow in your organization, personally and professionally? We need to shift the conversation from, here is what you will learn, to, what you will learn here will help you better understand this and will help us be successful at this. And with our guidance and support, they feel like they're active agents of their own careers. I have an example of this recently on my team. My young colleague of mine by the name of Michelle came to our team meeting with a proposal to talk to us about the gamification of learning. How many of you have heard of gamification? Excellent. Every time I hear it, I cringe. It's not something I'm familiar with. That's all we need now is to apply game theory to our learning environments. Gamification is this concept of applying game theory to create high-touch learning environments. When Michelle came to the staff meeting and told us, showed us how our learning management system could take our customer experience to a whole new level if we started with gamification. And her enthusiasm was contagious. She energized the entire team, including me. Now her supervisor is going to have to guide her strategically. But what I saw before my eyes was that if you let them bring their experience and their passion to the table unhindered, they will bring innovation and creativity. And lastly, recognition. So we've all heard that this is the everyone wins a trophy generation. Dave said it earlier this morning. But what I am saying goes beyond that. Millennials, young professionals, yearn for meaningful experiences at work and in life. And the more we recognize their contributions formally and informally, the more we acknowledge how they contribute, not just that they contribute. We are helping them make that shift from how am I doing in my job to how is what I am doing in my job impacting the success of my organization as a whole. In this shift from function thinking to enterprise thinking is good for all leaders, but it is particularly important for them. A recent Bright Horizons study of over 4,000 working adults in a variety of industries in the United States showed that millennials who work in highly supportive organizations report higher resilience, passion for work, and organizational commitment, more so than millennials reporting that they work in less supportive organizations. And so I'm going to leave you with this. There is no perfect formula. Millennials will struggle to make an imprint on this world as we do. And as their leaders, we will continue to struggle to resonate with them, to develop them, and to still build workplaces and cultures that are profitable and sustainable. But like Captain America, we can nod to the past, using those irrefutable leadership qualities that were good in the past, that brought about change in the past, that helped us succeed in the past, and translating them to resonate with a new demographic of emerging leaders, leaders who have access to information and stimulation, and who experience and perceive life and relate to one another differently than we do. And that's not good or bad, it just is, and one step at a time, which for me has meant reframing that moment with my grandmother. If at 87, you can attempt to resonate with your pushy granddaughter, we may misjudge each other, we may misunderstand each other, but there's hope for us all to find consensus. Thank you.